Welcome back, friends, to the No Regrets Blueprint podcast. This is your weekly workshop where we're going to dive into a concept, topic, or a tip from the book, The Entrepreneur's Regret. And today's content, we're going to be going over the understanding around the framework of the buckets that control our lives. There are three buckets that control our entire lives. I mean, you can create sub buckets, you can create like ancillary buckets, and yet when we think about like the core areas of our life, we can fit them in these three. I like simplicity. I like the rules of three. It makes it a little bit easier to work with. Over the next 8 to 10 minutes, I'm going to give you like an overview of the concept of the buckets. I'm going to share with you the single principle that may be pulling you out of any one of these areas and bleeding into the others. And then at the very end of this, I'm going to give you one tip, one actionable idea to be able to execute on immediately to start really changing how life starts to show up for you, how fulfillment starts to show up for you. And I promise you that you stay to the end, you're going to learn something about yourself that you're going to go, holy cow. Like, I didn't have words for this, right? So let's get into these three buckets. So the three buckets are leadership, love, and life. It's a 3L framework that we talk about in the book. And as we talk about this, high performers, one of the side effects that we have, and it's unspoken, is we've got this constant layer of guilt at times. And what happens is, when as entrepreneurs, we put ourselves out there for these risks to build these things. And it takes a certain type of person to want to go and build a business, to run a business, to be a leader. And you go all in one of these areas, and then the level of energy that it takes to build momentum in your business can sometimes bleed into your personal life at home, to where like you should be able to turn things off and you should be able to disconnect, and yet there are things that are left undone, and there are things that pop up after hours that, guess what, if you don't do it, nobody will. So who does it, right? So there's a season in building all of these things that sometimes you're all hands on deck often. And so again, when we talk about this area, it's about optimizing your opportunity once stabilization starts coming into play, and keeping in mind some of these best practices as you're building your business, as you're getting things rolling in your career. You do have the opportunity to still put in some of these tips for your life. And what happens is, if you're crushing it at work, or maybe you're at work, but you should be doing or could be doing even more things more effectively, what happens is I see a lot of entrepreneurs who they will resist or put off the thing that they don't want to do that may actually be the biggest needle mover, and then they'll convince themselves that they're being really busy doing something else, and they'll be fully spent energetically at the end of the day. They filled their calendar up with activity, and yet when they go home, there's that thing in the back of their mind that continues to remind them that, like, but you actually didn't create any new business. You didn't actually build any new relationships. You didn't go after a new client. You didn't go and close on an appointment, etc. And so when the phone rings when you're at home, you got to pick it up, because in the back of your mind, you're like, my pipeline isn't as full as I thought. So what happens is, even though you're home, even though you're physically there, you're not present. So what happens is, you go home, you've got guilt. And then if you're at home and you're not present at home, when you go back to work and you know that you haven't given the people that you said you would give the attention, or you haven't really been fully present there, when you're at work and that phone rings and you see who it is, there's that guilt. You got that guilt at work. And then above all of it is, when you're not fully all in at work and you're not fully all in at home, you have no time, or it doesn't feel good to start taking time alone to work on yourself, whether that's going to the gym or going to some type of workshop or personal development, or like any self-care or private time or one-on-one time starts to feel selfish. And so what happens is, in these buckets, if you're not being optimized or all in these areas, it starts to pull and you start to receive this guilt in all of these other areas. Every regret that I've experienced and that I've seen through my clients stems from one of these three buckets. It's super simple, right? In our leadership area, we focus on business, income, and mission. In our love bucket, we focus on our marriage, our family, our most trusted, our most cherished relationships. And for life, we talk about our physical health, our mental health, and our personal growth. So let's go into these buckets one at a time. So the leadership bucket, this is the one that funds everything else. This is the one, and I see the comments and I hear it when we talk about, being present when you're supposed to be present, letting that call go to voicemail, etc. I hear the thing going, well, then what? You're just going to let the deal fall? Here's the thing. If you did what you were supposed to do in the time that you were supposed to do it, you don't have to answer every call after hours because number one, that business will be there in the morning. And if you've got enough coming into the pipeline, you're not in scarcity mode, right? And what's interesting is that when you create that energy of abundance and you're hitting all of your targets and your metrics because you're all in when you're supposed to be, you're not worried about that additional spillover, et cetera. And you've probably already created some systems and leverage that can start to capture and create a net for those opportunities when you're not there. Keep in mind, man, Sam Walton did not man every register. At some point, he had to develop systems and leverage along the way. And whether you're a solopreneur or not, there's things that you could be doing right now with systems and leverage to be able to duplicate or multiply your presence without you actually having to be there. So that's a whole bigger conversation. So the leadership is your business performance, your revenue, your team, and your mission. And when you're not crushing it here, when you're being delusional about your effectiveness just because of your energy that you're putting into it, that guilt bleeds into every other area of your life. However, when you crush here, you get the opportunity to go all in those areas. Like I'm getting ready right now. I'm pre-recording this to then have it post in 2 weeks from now when I'm going to be on the beach in Ocean City with my family for our annual trip. Guess what? That trip has been on my calendar at the beginning of the year. So guess what? I'm front loading all of the activities so I could be putting out content, so I could be connecting. And I've got my clients. Everybody's already been notified and moved around. I've got contingencies and things in place. So when I'm there, I'm there. I'm not unreachable. However, I don't have to respond to things with massive urgency. And that's the goal here is when you crush it in leadership, you earn the right to be fully present in your love and your life. Love. This is the bucket that makes everything else worth it. This is that opportunity for you to honor the people that you say you're doing all of this for by being there for them and not just physically, but mentally, energetically. And it's about your marriage, your children, your closest relationship. Neglect here, this creates the longest lasting regrets. I talked about it in another video. One of my mentors and leaders that I get to work for just mentioned in a podcast he was interviewing other multiple seven-figure millionaires and 7, 8, 9-figure millionaires and asking them, going back, looking back, what's the one thing? What's the one regret? And they said, man, that I didn't honor the time with my littles when they were little, and that I spent too much time chasing the next thing when that next thing didn't actively and affect their life, where they could have been more present and personal with who they were supposed to be. Like, so it's the regret that you're gonna have later isn't the fact that you closed that next deal. It's did you miss that milestone? Did you miss that moment? Right? Your family can't be replaced. When we talk about juggling those balls, there are rubber balls and glass balls. This one, it's a glass one. If you drop this one, it could crack, it could break, it can't be repaired, and it can't be replaced. However, when your love is full, man, you show up, you have the opportunity to show up energetically and with a power in all of the other areas that you've never experienced. And then lastly, the third, the life bucket. This is the one that keeps you in the game. This is the one, this is like the multivitamin, if you will, for everything else. When you crush here, the other areas flourish even harder. So life is about your physical health, your mental health, and your personal development. Interestingly enough, this is the first bucket that most entrepreneurs neglect or sacrifice, right? When you're working all in on your business, knowing that the life bucket or the love bucket is a glass ball, sometimes we have to go a little harder over there. And then anything that's in the life bucket feels selfish. And so we sacrifice. However, the lack of investment in self bleeds slowly from all those other areas, right? No energy equals weak leadership. No mental clarity equals a lack of presence in love. And investing in this one increases your capacity, right? So the way that this works is that you earn the right to be fully present in the areas, and it starts with understanding boundaries and being all in where you're supposed to be. So, being all in the area that funds that perfect life allows you the opportunity to be all in the area that you honor most. And by being all in the area that you honor most, allows you to be all in the area that supports and fills the rest of it with the energy and that self-actualization that you deserve, right? So how do we navigate and manage guilt? And here's the thing, I want to ask you, I want you to remove the judgment around that feeling, right? Use it, let's use it as a tool, let's use it as an indicator, let's use it as a natural warning sign as to where we may be out of balance or where we may be low in those buckets. So guilt isn't the enemy, it's data. So if you're guilty at home, if you're feeling guilty at home, your leadership may be lacking, right? If you're feeling, when you're present at home and you're feeling guilty about being present, it may be because you're lacking in that area. If you're guilty about your health, if you're feeling guilty about taking time for yourself, it may be because you haven't been fully present and honored the love bucket and the people around you. You haven't been purposeful about really being engaged and showing them, right? And so the fix is to identify through the feeling, using guilt as a GPS as to where you need to be working most, and then filling the bucket that needs attention and act. Because when we look back, there are no regrets that live outside of these buckets. Here's some examples here. I miss my kids' childhood. That's, one of the biggest regrets of those that have succeeded. Well, that's a lack of love bucket, right? I didn't get a chance to build the business I dreamed of. Well, that's a lack of your opportunity to go all in on the leadership bucket. And I've let my health go for a decade. I can't breathe when I tie my shoes. Well, what happens is that is also a lack of the life bucket. Marriage fell apart while I was building, love bucket. And I never became the leader I knew I could be, the leadership bucket. So the blueprint around the buckets is filling them in the right order. So we start with identifying which of these buckets feels most empty to you. And then we focus on filling that one first. So take a look at these three, do an audit for yourself. So the last lesson we gave you, that awareness audit sheet, do the same type of exercise with these buckets and ask yourself, okay, out of these three, where do I feel the most out of alignment? Where do I feel the most empty? And then work on how do I fill that bucket first, right? And so maybe you're feeling the most out of alignment in your love bucket. So how do you fill that first? Intentionality through presence, like scheduling some date nights, scheduling some one-on-ones with your kids, putting like leaving. Here's the thing: leave your phone in your car when you come home from work until after dinner. Like give yourself that hour, that 90 minutes of coming in to just being present. And some of you just, when I said that, you threw up a little bit in your mouth, and that's a problem. That's called addiction, right? Because somebody took away your drug. If you physically felt a certain way about whenever I suggested putting your phone or leaving your phone in the car, you're a junkie and you're no better than a junkie. Absorb that, right? Absorb it. And if you're defending and you're like, this guy, you don't get it, junkie talk. That's victimhood. That's lashing out. That's like toddlerism, right? Don't lash out. If you're pissed, get pissed at like how bad you let it get, right? And then protect each bucket once it's full and then cycle. It's a lifelong process. This is the thing is like, even as I wrote this and I talk about it, I don't have buckets that don't have leaks in them. I'm leaking all over the place. And I use these same tools and tips to go back and continue to fill and adjust and work on these buckets, right? All right. So I'm just going to leave you with this, right? Which bucket's emptiest for you in your life? I'd love to hear, drop it in the comments. Let's start the conversation. If you want to get deeper into this conversation, you want the full toolkit, you want the full blueprint, you want all the things, you know where to find it. You can go to the noregretsblueprint.com. There's a link in the description down below. And if you're getting value out of these conversations, man, we would love it if you became one of our subscribers so you can check in weekly with us and hang out with our guests who share their stories of building a life of no regrets. And then I'm going to be doing, like I said, these weekly workshops moving forward. So super glad you're here. If you got something out of this, smash that like button, hit subscribe, hang out with us, jump in the comments. It's me. So I'm the one responded. I don't have a gigantic team in here. This is a passion project for me. I've made a commitment to make sure that I give back to my community in the following ways. And that's how we're going to be doing it here. So I appreciate you guys for hanging in there. If you're still with us, cool, man. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care, guys.